It's not going. Oh, there we go.
Welcome, everyone, to another summer episode of Rangers Ed. This is your host, Cousin Ed. I'm here with my co-host, Little Ed. What's up, bud, with the grit hat? Jeez.
Yeah. So, as my tradition goes, I got to get a hat at every arena I go to. So, at the Flyers one, I couldn't get the Flyers. What's it called? Wells Fargo, I think. Couldn't get a Flyers hat, so I got a Gritty hat. I don't think that counts. Got Gritty's little eyebrows on there. I thought it was hilarious.
Blasphemous to wear that. By the way, 2 seconds before we went live, we were all just chatting, and he did not have that hat on. So while he played the intro, he threw the hat on and just surprised me with it. So that's good.
Yeah, see that?
I couldn't wear a Flyers hat, a Devil's hat, an Islanders hat.
I don't think it's a Flyers hat. It's a black and orange hat.
It's their mascot.
I'm not rooting for Gritty. If realistically, I think Gritty's best work is when the Flyers are terrible. So I think I'm rooting for Gritty for the Flyers to be terrible. You know?
Oh man, that's funny, man.
I don't know,
but anyway,
tough one.
you threw me off with the hat. So
I was wondering why.
Go ahead, Coach.
I was wondering why you were giggling as you were doing the intro.
Yeah. So back on track.
Now that I'm all thrown off. Anyway, I'm pumped about this opening night suite we got, dude. Like, I'm gonna go. So I'm making the trip up. Me and my wife are gonna go. So if you guys are going, you'll see us there. And I'm just pumped to see Utah. I haven't been to opening night at the Garden in a long time. It's been a while. So I am pumped.
Yeah, it's always a good time with the intros and stuff. And I mean, especially this time, we're going to be in the suite surrounded by a lot of our fans, a lot of Ranger fans, a lot of good food from the Garden stuff. We do have plenty of room available. I think Cousin Ed said before this, we have about 15 tickets left. So they are going, but there is some spots left. So shoot me a DM or an email and we'll get you on the list. We'd love to have you. And it's definitely going to be a good time and hopefully the first of many more in the future. If this one goes well, I'm sure we'll have to do it again next year.
Yeah, it's first come, first served. So if you're interested, make sure you reach out on Instagram or DM Rangers Ed Pod. What is it? RangersEd.pod, I think.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Rangers_Ed Pod.
Yeah,
right?
It's at the top of the screen for all you guys watching on YouTube.
Sorry, at Rangers_Ed.
Really threw you off with the hat. I really threw you off with the hat. I didn't mean.
I'm off. My game's off now. You could have eased me in a few minutes before we went live with that.
Yeah.
We got Coach Ed over there. What's up, Coach?
What's going on, fellas? Getting excited for the season. The opening night will be great. I hope everybody can get a ticket who can make it. Is Gaz going to make it from across the pond?
I don't think so. I don't think Gaz is not going to make it, but he's more than welcome to, of course, and everyone else in the chat.
Well, maybe he can get on a cargo ship. If he leaves now, he might make it in time.
He gets stowed away.
Yeah, for real. But I'm pumped, because this is the first episode of our Rivalry Tour. We do this every year as an idea we had a few years ago. And I think it's gotten some pretty good feedback, and it's interesting. In the middle of the summer, there's really nothing going on in the hockey world. And it's time to be with someone who's connected with, our rivals and where are they at after their off season, after their season before, based on their expectations, did they meet them? And it's just fun, So we do a little rivalry tour every week. We bring on, I think this year we got Flyers, Devils, Islanders. I might be out of order. Pittsburgh, Boston,
Penguins.
and and Carolina.
We're working
right?
on her. Yeah, we're working on the Carolina. Hopefully, we'll sneak them in at the end. But so far, we got those 5 teams scheduled.
It's
exciting
also
stuff. I mean,
yeah.
I just want to shout out everyone who helped us start out with the Rivalry Tour. Like, it started out with like my college friends who were just fans of other teams from all over the place. You know, they were kind enough to join us when we were just a young podcast trying to get our name out there. And now we got writers from the Hockey News, other podcasts of other fan bases, you know, and YouTubers and things like that. So it's exciting. It really is cool. And it's nice that they are able to put time in to join us. It's really nice of them to do that. So we're excited to be on our guest pretty soon.
Yeah. And we got a really good guest doing the Philadelphia Flyers. So if you're here for that, just hang on a second. We're going to bring our guest on shortly. I think the best part about the Rivalry Tour that I like is it gives us perspective. You know, a lot of times it's really easy when you watch a team day in and day out and you follow it to kind of get rose-colored glasses about your team. And we really get a different perspective from other fan bases that really don't like us, like the Rangers, right? I say us, I mean the Rangers. And it helps us collectively kind of get some perspective on the organization. I know particularly this summer I'm interested because a lot of Ranger fans are down on the Rangers, which is crazy. I saw this thing in The Athletic. Did you guys see the article I sent you?
Yeah.
About,
all over social media as well.
Yeah, fans got to vote on the confidence of management and where the direction of the team, and a bunch of various different topics like that. And the fans were way below the public opinion of the Rangers, which is, they've been a relatively successful organization, particularly in the last 3 years. And most people think they're headed in the right direction, except Ranger fans, I guess. So let's see what other fan bases have to say. But,
most of them are in Cousin Ed mode.
Yeah, they're in Cousin Ed mode, right? I mean, I think it's a New York thing. I saw this post the other day. Somebody was ripping the Yankees on Twitter, just ripping the Yankees. And then somebody posted the MLB standings, and the Yankees had the best record in the entire league. And it was like, fire Cashman, fire Boone. They're never winning it, and they're first place in the entire Major League Baseball. So I really do think it's in New York a little bit. I think it's New York fans,
Yeah. We just desire greatness. But yeah, I mean, a little intro to our guest. Coach Ed and I actually met her down in the Philly area. And I don't know, what town is that technically? I don't really remember. But we were down coaching at Nationals, and she was working for AAU, covering our national tournament and interviewing players in between games and whatnot. She did a phenomenal job. So yeah, she's a writer for the Hockey News, and I was reading some of her articles. She's got a lot of recent articles, so hop on over there and read them. You can also follow her on X at SG Nolan. So yeah, without further ado, here's Siobhan Nolan. Welcome to the show.
Hello, guys. So good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
Hi, Siobhan.
Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So
How are you, hon?
I'm good.
I want to start out. I just kind of, this is the first time I'm meeting you. You met Coach Ed and Little Ed. Just to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to. And I see that you're a reporter and site editor for the Hockey News. So, how did you get into that? And, pretty much what are you up to?
So I did a lot of sideline work for AAU. I've been doing that since 2020. That's actually where I was when the pandemic started, was the very first year that they did it. We were there, and then we had to shut the whole thing down, and it was really fun. But yeah, I've just been doing a lot of sports journalism all throughout college. And then I got the Hockey News job I started in January. So, just been covering the very interesting, chaotic season that the Flyers have been having, trying to find stuff to write about in the off season, even though it's been really slow. So yeah, it's been really great though. I'm really excited to have my first full season with the Flyers. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it gets really slow in the summer, right?
Sports have been relatively quiet, huh?
It has. I mean, they warned us that it would be, but I was like, okay, I need something, please.
Yeah. Well, I think Coach was saying Torts has been quiet, which is a surprise because that's
I
usually
know.
doesn't happen. So covering the Flyers, you said you started covering them in January?
Yeah.
So you kind of jumped in mid-season on the Flyers, and at that point, I think they were, I think, third in the Metro for a large portion of the season. So I'm just curious. I don't think a lot of people predicted that. When you joined in and you started covering them, what was your pulse on the fan base and their feelings about the team in that spot? Were they pleasantly surprised? Were they waiting for the other shoe to drop? Where's the fan base at last year?
I mean, with Philly fans in general, you never can quite enjoy a good run because you're waiting for, like, okay, something's going to go wrong, something like terrible is going to happen. So I think everyone was definitely very cautiously optimistic, but with the preseason predictions this past season, I mean, people had the Flyers dead last, just completely tanking, and then not only did they go on to have that really good run, but they were able to be pretty consistent with it up until that like last run of the season. So I think overall people were pretty satisfied because they did do so much better than they were initially predicted to. But I think the shoe did drop like a lot of people were afraid of, and it did kind of mess with the flow of the whole season. But overall, I think people are pretty optimistic about the direction that they started heading in.
I wanted to ask you about, I guess, what players you thought, or I guess since you said heading in the right direction. I mean, I went to the Flyers game with a buddy of mine in Philly, and I thought Owen Tippett stood out like very early on in his career. I want to say it was 2 years ago was his rookie year or 3. I think it was 2.
I think 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So either way, I was there for his rookie year, and against the Rangers, he stood out in my mind. And for a young player like that, just like I don't know, his style of play definitely fits towards his coaching style. So I definitely think they mesh perfectly. I guess other than him, who do you think is heading in that direction?
I think Cam York had a really good breakout season. He was on that first, D pair with Travis Sand. This guy's not be an NHL player. I don't think he's an NHL player. Cam York was just like, he was just very kind of in that in between where he was down in Lehigh Valley, he came back up, and even Torts was like, I don't know if this guy is an NHL caliber defenseman. And then he kind of broke out, and he had a really good year, and he was voted the most improved player by his teammates when they did the team awards. I think Tyson Forrester's headed in a really good direction. It was his rookie season this season. He hit the 20 goal mark, and I really think that just in general play, he looked good. I know that we really overworked Sam Ersson this year, and, the whole goalie situation was just like, a lot for everyone to handle. But for Sam Ersson to be 24, be a rookie, and then play as well as he did and handle as many games as he had to handle, I think that once he has more time and he has, a proper off season to recover and work out and everything, I think we'll see better goaltending from him just throughout the season now that he's a little more acclimated.
Yeah, that's interesting because with the Devils, when they beat the Rangers with Akira Schmidt, he had I think when they don't have to think about it and they come in, it's easy to be successful. Mentally less pressure than if they have to think about it all summer. So that'll be interesting to see how he responds now.
Yeah, that whole situation just mentally took a toll on the whole team, and they kind of said as much, that a lot of those struggles were just from all the chaos happening off the ice. And Torts even said, we played Sam in way too many games. He was only predicted to play like 18 to 20, and he ended up playing almost like double that, I think. So it was just a lot for everyone to take on very, very suddenly as it happened. So hopefully this year is a little more calm in that sense.
Do you think Sam Ersson or Fedotov is going to get the majority of the work next year, or do you think it's going to be kind of split?
I think they're going to at least start out giving Sam most of the games. They definitely do want to integrate Fedotov and, get him used to the NHL, because it was pretty clear he didn't get, a lot of games last season, but it's pretty clear that it was going to be a big adjustment, because coming from the KHL to the NHL, that can be a big transition for guys. And he had that whole, thing with the Russian government. And
I was going to say, didn't he come from a prison in Siberia, not the KHL?
Yeah, he was literally, I mean, technically speaking, he was like KHL, and then he low-key got like kidnapped and then sent to this like naval base. And yeah, it was a lot. But it's things like that where just so many things happened, and there's going to still be a lot of adjustments to be made. But I think Sam's still going to be number one, but we're going to see more Fido Top now that like they're kind of the concrete goalie tandem, and we're not just like rotating goalies like we did last season.
Interesting. So what do you think was the reason for the Flyers' success last year? Because I thought they had a good year. Although towards the end, I did kind of predict they would fall out. Despite that they were in that 3 spot, we kept having guests on, and we all agreed, like, yeah, I don't see them hanging on. But I thought it was an impressive season. What do you think was the biggest reason for that?
I think it's real. People were talking about the culture all season, to the point where a lot of people are like, okay, let's shut up about the culture. But that is a huge, thing that the new front office wanted to implement. It's a huge thing with the coaching staff and just in the locker room in general. And, these guys really love playing with one another. They love, the coaching staff, even though Torts can be tough, they've really bought into his mentality and how he runs things. They really love how Keith Jones, Danny Briere, and Dan Hilferty have taken over the management and leadership. The front office is traveling to away games as much as they can. And they're going into the locker room after every game and shaking the guys' hands. And I think that closeness and that knowing that, okay, the people in the organization care and they want us to succeed and they want to make this a place where guys want to play. I think that's a huge reason why they were able to kind of overachieve, and, why they are still very ambitious with what they were saying in their exit interviews this season. So I think the culture and just genuinely loving the people that they're with is a really big reason why they were able to do what they did.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You may or may not know I'm a big Torts fan when he was here, especially, and even after. I like the his actions and how he brings a lot of stuff into the media, and how he, unfortunately for you, tells the media where they can go if there's a problem.
He's been nice to me so far, so I'm hoping to keep that streak going.
Because me and Eddie recently met with a media person who you might know. We won't mention him right now unless Eddie feels we can mention it. But he gave us his rookie game working for the NHL. He had to hook up the internet stuff for the iPads on the bench and this and that, and he couldn't get it to connect. So he got all nervous. He thought he did something wrong. He's running around the stadium, blah, blah, blah. The trainer looks at him and goes, "It's not going to happen." He goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "He's got it. He doesn't even have it plugged in or whatever. He doesn't want it." So it was like interesting for him. So give us a Torch story without you getting yourself in trouble.
That she doesn't want to lose her street cred with Torch. You just
well, something, I think he's a guy like me. I don't think he's going to hate her if he tells an interesting story.
Well, there was. I had a little bit of a viral moment earlier this year. I was in a press conference, and this was in February, so I was still very new and very nervous. Like, Torts scared the hell out of me. Like, he had been nothing but nice to me, but he still like terrified me because I had seen the way that he had like acted towards other reporters sometimes, and I was like, oh my God. But we're sitting in this press conference, and he's answering a question, and it's not even a question that I asked. But he's like answering this question, and his eyes are kind of like wandering around the room. And then he stops and he looks at my shoes and he goes, "Are those high whites?" And at first I'm like, oh my God, is he like talking to me? Like, I didn't know what was going on. And I was wearing just these like white Converse, and he just like noticed it and he pointed it out. And I was like, yeah, they are. And he was like, "I like those." And I was like, thanks. So I'm just like, I'm sitting there shaking, and I'm like, oh my God, like, did he just compliment my shoes? Like, what was that?
Just keep wearing them.
I know my lucky high whites, but that got like posted, and people loved it. So that was my little like nice little Torch story.
So give us an interesting question that you asked him that he didn't snap at you. Were you nervous asking him a question, because you just said you were pretty nervous? I would be.
Oh yeah, I'm still kind of nervous when I have to ask him something because I never want that to be like the question that he doesn't like. I can't remember a specific question that I asked, but I've had a couple where he gave me really good like long answers, or he said that's a good question. So hopefully I'm gonna keep being in good standing with him.
Stay
But
online.
yeah, but I really do like Torts. I mean, I know that he can be a controversial figure, but just seeing him coaching and, having him in person and being able to talk to him, I really do like him. And I think that he can be misunderstood with how he acts around people, but I'm a fan of him. I'm behind him.
Do you think,
Yeah,
I mean, not to bring up a sore subject, but the whole situation with Cutter Gauthier,
Mhm.
like, do you think that had anything to do with him not wanting to play for Torts, or do you think it was just more the Flyers organization in general?
I
You
don't
don't have
think
to
that.
speculate if you don't want to, but
No, I mean, I think we're gonna get as much information about that situation, like, as we can. I don't think anyone's really gonna talk about it any further, and from what Danny Briere said, Cutter just wasn't interested in being a Flyer, and, I saw Cutter on, like, a podcast, and he said that, like, he went up to Torts himself, and he was really, like, pumped up with how Torts responded to him, but, if he thinks Torts is too tough to play for, if that's not the kind of coach that he wants, then so be it. I think Cutter's a great player, and I think he would have been a great player for the Flyers. But, like Keith Jones said, if you don't want to be a Flyer, then we don't want you in the organization. And whatever his specific reasoning was, I don't even think he really told the front office about it. It really did sound like he just kind of ghosted them and kind of forced their hand. But I do think just as an organization in general, for whatever reason, Cutter just really didn't vibe with it. He didn't show up to like rookie camp or anything. So he really like had his mind made up that he's like, never mind. I don't want to be a Flyer anymore. So guess we'll never know.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean they got Jamie Drysdale, who was
I
a
would be
top
upset.
prospect. I mean, he was a top prospect. He had some injuries, and I think he fell out of favor a little bit as far as his prospect status. But he's still a relatively young guy. What is he, like 23?
Yeah, I think he turned like 22 or 23
he's
this
20.
year.
Yeah, he's only 22, and
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great pickup anyway.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I think
What's the
definitely.
pick?
I think Gauthier is probably worth more. I don't know if you agree or not, as far as just from an asset perspective. But when your guy doesn't want to play for you, you turn it into a 22-year-old former top 5 pick. That's a pretty good move. So
Yeah, and I know that we have a lot of issues with like our center position and everything like that, but I think having a young guy like Drysdale on defense is certainly helpful. I think, anything that's going to keep us heading in that younger direction that, Danny Briere wants to go in is going to be helpful. So I understand that people really just want like to say, oh, the Flyers won the trade and, Drysdale is going to be better than Cutter, and I'm really excited for Cutter to come to Philly in January. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, Drysdale was a great acquisition. I wish people talked about him more instead of just like ripping on Cutter, because I get it. But, I do think Drysdale was a really good pick, especially, trading with the Ducks and everything. Like, I don't know if you could have really asked for a better player than that.
Right. No, I think it was a good move. So look, the last thing I'll say about last year before we kind of turn to the offseason is I was really surprised how good Philly was off the rush last year.
Yeah.
I think they were a top 5 in the NHL in goals off the rush. And I don't know. I remember Torts as the Rangers coach, and that was not the team that we had. That was not the way it was. I mean, we had some good rush players. We had some speed, but I doubt we were top 5 in the league with goals off the rush. So was it a Torts thing, or was it just some offensive players broke out? I mean, I ran through the stats for the Flyers last year, and I was kind of surprised at some of the goal totals for some of the players on the team. So what do you think was it? Was it a coaching thing, or was it just the breakout of some young players?
I think it was the breakout of young players, and then Torts kind of realized that he had to adapt to that. Owen Tippett is like crazy fast. I think he had like the top speed in the NHL this year.
He's also got one of the best nicknames in the league.
Yeah.
Red Lettuce.
Like it doesn't get better than that. But they do have some really good speed. Jamie Drysdale is, super fast when he's healthy as well. So I think Torts was very vocal about the fact that he's like, I did have to adapt to a different system. I did have to adapt to, these players' styles and what's going to be best for them. But I think they did a really good job of recognizing like, okay, we have, strength in this area of our offense, and we're going to try and bring that out as much as possible. And it did work out really well for them. And I think that's how the offense likes to play too, because they really did try to create a lot of chances off the rush. And even if they weren't always successful, you could see the vision was there. So I think Torts recognized that, and he was like, all right, I'll kind of adapt and see what we can do with that.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's gonna give into the fact that they're growing still.
Yeah.
But I'm sure his mentality is defense first is going to lead to those off the rush chances.
Mhm.
And that's what he's got to sell to the young kids, because it's all about the stats and the excitement. But if you don't have that defense first with the goaltending mentality and then move it up ice, it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting a lot of comments on the Instagram chat that the Flyers aren't what they used to be. They're not the Broad Street Bullies anymore. I mean, I'm sure Coach Ed can attest to the old years, but do the Flyers have anybody in the mix, or do you see anybody that's going to be able to stand up to Matt Rempe, perhaps? I mean, is there anyone that's going to be able to protect Owen Tippett when it comes down to it? Not that he needs protection.
You had to mention Matt Rempe. We're already getting.
Our fans want to talk about Matt Rempe. You got to hit the headlines. Siobhan knows what the fans want to talk about. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bully days, I don't want to say that they're over, but I just don't think that that's what this team is focusing on, because we don't have a lot of super big physical guys. Like, yeah, Travis Konechny will step up to whoever he wants, but he's 5'10", and he's not that physical presence. He can yap your ear off, and I love him for that, but that's just not kind of their style. And besides like Nick Delorier or a player like that, that's just not where the Flyers are. And I think, I get that people kind of still want them to be those kind of Broad Street bullies because they were so famous for that. And that is like the trademark. But I think this team is moving away from that like physical, okay, we'll just throw a punch, whatever. And I think they are trying to lean more into that creativity and skill. And we have a lot of yappers. We have a lot of guys that will chirp you into oblivion, but I don't know if a lot of people are going to be throwing punches necessarily.
You mean the fans or the players?
Oh, both. Both of them will.
All right.
But we definitely have a lot of players that they love to chirp.
Also, Konechny is listed at 5'10", but that means he's like 5'8", right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I'm like 5'4", and I've stood next to him, and he's not that much taller than me. I couldn't give you like a super fair, because he was on skates too, so it's kind of a little disoriented. But yeah, there is speculation that he is not being super truthful about his height. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Him at 5'10".
I haven't measured him, so I don't know.
All right, let's get to Matvei Michkov, who I'm sure all the fans are excited about. But I'm more interested in, like, how do you think that's going to work with Torts? I mean, I don't really know much about Michkov's personality other than the drama around the draft year. Mm-hmm. Is he going to want to come over? He's a talented guy, but does he have the work ethic? All these things. And then all of a sudden, quickly, bam, he wants to come to the NHL, and Torts is his coach. That seems like it could go really into just complete. There is no middle that this can go. It's going to either be a disaster or he's going to be Kirill Kaprizov, right? Like, it's going to be one or the other.
And you're not the first person to have that concern. A lot of people were worried that, Torts and Michkov were going to clash, because from what I can tell about Michkov and what people have said, he's a super hard worker. He takes hockey very seriously. Like, he's always locked in on, that winning mentality. And he's already saying, like, I want to help the Flyers win. I want to be the best I can be, which I think is pretty impressive for a 19-year-old to be so serious about it. And Michkov's going to have to adjust. He's going to have translators and tutors to help him learn English and, just help him adjust to the NHL, the different ice size and everything. So I think Torts is going to understand that, okay, this kid's like, he's going to have to acclimate. He's going to have to, really just help him along as much as he can. But I think that there's going to be some good kind of mindset challenges. I think they are going to challenge each other, but I personally think it's going to end up working out for the better, that they can challenge each other and kind of like have those two egos, I guess, go head to head. And I think it's going to bring out the best in Michkov, and I think it's going to bring out the best in the team as a whole, because he seems like the kind of guy where Michkov makes the players around him better because of how good he is and how much he wants to win. And I think Torts can appreciate that as well.
Well, it worked. Torts coached Panarin, and Panarin had a ton of success under Torts. So if Michkov does have a work, I know Panarin gets a lot of criticism about his goofy demeanor and things like that, but he there's no doubt the guy is committed. He works out like a maniac, etc. So I'm sure Torts cares more about those things than if he's goofball or whatever, right? So do they have any Russians on the team other than him to help him acclimate?
We have one, Igor Zamula, and he's around Michkov's age. He's like 21.
And you said it's Fedotov, right? Sorry, I said Fedotov before. Fedotov?
Well, the Russian pronunciation, I'm a little iffy on it too. I've heard it both ways, so I don't really know. And I think Fedotov is good. He's still kind of adjusting and acclimating, so maybe that's something that they can like bond over and do together.
Yeah, right.
But he does have Zamula, who's close to his age, and Zamula's in with the other young players, so Michkov can kind of join that group. And they have a Flyers consultant who has been kind of acting as the translator for Michkov, and they're really committed to helping him just learn and adjust as much as possible. So there's plenty of support for him, which is really nice to see, because I'm sure that's got to be really disorienting to be like 19 and all of a sudden like new country, new language, new everything. So yeah, they're really going to help him out.
That's got to be crazy. I can't imagine like going and playing hockey in Russia, not knowing the language at all.
Exactly.
Imagine
15, like,
talking to other teammates and,
Right. Imagine, coach, you're 19 and they're just like, put you in Moscow. And you're right here.
With all the hype around him too, like, can you imagine everyone's just like in your face and calling you the savior of the organization? Like,
give you $1 million a year. Here, go live in Moscow, dude. Like, what?
Like, okay.
If anything else, it's going to make for some interesting pressers when they start asking Torts about it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Why didn't he play on the power play? Why didn't he do this? How's he coming along? I could just hear it now.
Well, that's the thing. Is he going to be on the first line?
Come up with some good questions. I don't want to see you on one of those videos where he's screaming at you, please.
I don't want to be there either. That's like my worst fear.
Just don't ask him questions after a loss, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just stay quiet. After a loss, just stay there with your high whites and just and just let him go. And then after the win, that's when you ask questions.
You never ask the first question with Torts. That's what I've learned. You always let someone else do it and kind of get a feel for like what mood he's in, and then you go from there. So
that's a good strategy, I think.
Yeah.
Come on, dig in.
I'll get there.
Yeah, I don't know. Jackie Redmond told us when we interviewed her that sometimes you just got to ask the tough questions and take the leap. So
yeah,
we'll see. I don't know. Coach Ed loves the Torts press conferences, so he'll be looking out for you.
They're great. They are very entertaining.
Paul says, "Next question."
Well, before we get off of Michkov, I saw you wrote a whole article about not throwing him into center in his first season. I mean, I always said that about Filipino on our show, and I still kind of say that about him. I think they should give him the shot at right wing on the Rangers' first line, as opposed to holding on to the dreams of him being a center. So I just wanted you kind of to expand on your article. Hopefully fans go over and read all of her articles on the Hockey News. But yeah, just expand on it, and I wanted to hear your opinion on that subject.
Yeah, I think in the future, if the center situation is still kind of dire, because right now we don't really have centers, and before the draft, Danny was like, we know that we need more, and that's kind of our mentality going into the draft, is that we're going to try to go for centers. And I would love to see them try Michkov, because he's played center before. He played center in the KHL for a few games, so it's not completely unfamiliar to him. But my big drawback is just the fact that I don't think it would be best for him to be thrown into the NHL and have all these adjustments off the ice and then all of a sudden be like, okay, we're going to have you in this new position that you've played before, but you're not really comfortable in and you're not really used to. I just don't think like his first season would be the best time to do it. Once he's settled in and once he's comfortable with the team and comfortable in the league, I think it could be interesting to see him at center, especially if we still don't have a lot of centers because, we signed Jet Luchenko to his ELC, but he still has a few years of development left. And who knows what's going to happen with Morgan Frost and Sean Couturier. Like, I hear trade rumors about them every other week, so we don't really know what's going to happen. But I think just for his season, his first season, keep him on the wing. God forbid, something terrible happens and they need to move him to center. But I think as much as possible, they should just keep him where he's comfortable just so that he can adjust properly. And then once he, is fully integrated, then you can kind of move him around and see what's going on.
Yeah. I think he's a natural wing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Do you think he's going to play on the first line, or do you think Torts is going to start on the fourth line? There's no in between. It's first line or fourth line, right?
Yeah, there's really no room for movement there. I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't start out on the first line because they made a real, effort to say that Michkov is not going to be handed anything. He is going to have to work for his position like any other player would. I know that so many fans, think he's God and, he's going to do all these amazing things, but they want to temper their expectations with him, which I think is really important because I don't think he's going to come out the gate, point per game pace like he was in the KHL. I think he is going to have a little bit of a, kind of slow opening, just getting used to everything. And I could see him, third or second line to start out. And then if he does really well and he does earn that spot in the first line, I don't think Torts will have any hesitation to put him up there. I just don't know if he'll start out there until they kind of get an idea of who he works best with and, just where his progression is going as the season goes on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Flyers were relatively quiet, I thought, in the offseason. They did re-sign Konechny, and they brought in a couple of re-signings, and Michkov obviously was the big deal. But, the fan base, I'm just curious, what are you seeing online or just interactions? And are they happy with that? Or are they trying to play it slow? Or did they want them to be more aggressive? Are they trying to compete this year? Because like you said, I keep hearing that they're going to trade Lawton. They're going to trade even Konechny before. I think he just signed an extension, right? They were going to trade him. Farabee might get traded. Like, where's the team right now? Are they still in rebuild mode or are they turning a corner?
I think they're definitely still in rebuild mode. I know there's plenty of people who think that bringing in Michkov kind of changes that. I don't think it does. I think they're still very much, still figuring things out and, moving guys around and, going in that younger direction and, who knows what's going to happen with Frost and Farabee. I know a lot of fans do think that for the right deal, for the right player, they wouldn't be mad about parting ways with Frost or Farabee. There's similar feelings for Lawton. I know a lot of people think that Konechny was kind of overpaid or his contract is too long. And, people either like really love the Konechny deal or they hate it and they think that they should have just traded him, which I don't think would have made a lot of sense, but it's very much like people saw how good the Flyers were this season. And I think that they're really afraid that that was like a fluke and a one-off. And they're like, okay, we need to make all of these dramatic changes so that, we don't lose that really good momentum. But I don't see them parting ways with any of the young players unless there's a really, really good deal. And I don't know what that would even look like. But yeah, it's just a lot of people wanting to trade people away. I don't know if there's anyone that we necessarily are like really keen to bring in. It's a lot of like letting players go that people are trying to make happen.
Well, yeah, you already have a lot of young talent. I mean, we talked about before. I mean, you mentioned Cam Fowler, but I mean, who else do you see
Cam
as
York.
like not being? Cam Fowler, Cam York. Cam Fowler's on Anaheim, right? So
Yeah.
the trade with Anaheim, a lot
Yeah.
going on. So anyway, other than him and Owen Tippett, obviously, I mean, another breakout player this year. I mean, there's a lot of people asking in the chat and stuff.
I think Tyson
I
Forster.
think Tyson Ed really wants to know for his fantasy team.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I
so
do.
No, fair enough. And
I'm in a
maybe
keeper league, you know.
it's his burner in the chat saying, "Ask me
I'm in-
this," you know. So.
I'm in a keeper league. So
Yeah.
who am I taking late?
But I think Tyson Forster was pretty underrated. I know that, you know, he's still very young and it was his rookie season and there is plenty of growth for him to have still. But sorry, I can't talk today. He hit the 20 goal mark. I think he just looked really good on offense in general. He is very versatile. I noticed that he could fit really well with a lot of different line mates. So I would definitely want to keep an eye on him. I know people are very cautious about Frost. I know that he's very contentious and he's another one where you kind of either love him or you hate him. But after, you know, that meeting that he had with Torts where he kind of went into the office and was like, dude, stop benching me. Like, what are you doing? I think that he did have a really good run after that. And I think that he would have had better stats and people would have rated him a little better. It's just the fact that he didn't have the most compatible line mate. So a lot of his passes and chances weren't getting converted. So if he's on a line with Michkov, you know, I think Frost will be able to do a little more and, you know, hopefully keep that momentum going. Because I think if he stays playing the way that he has been, I think that there's a lot of value in keeping him around. Joel Farabee is another one where he put up career numbers this year, even though he did kind of fall off in the second half. He's another one where it's like, you know how good they can be. And so you really hope that they can just find their way back to that because a lot of guys did kind of have like glimpses and flashes and a little bit inconsistent. But I think once you reach that consistency, we'll be good to go.
Well, I think Farabee came out the gate in his career pretty well, and he got himself a nice contract.
Yeah.
And I feel like you said last year was consistency issues, but I think he'll be fine. Frost is an interesting player, but I'm not going to let you over what you just said about him, that he went into Torts' office and said, "Stop benching me." You're going to have to elaborate on that a little bit.
So,
what happened?
So, I mean, Morgan Frost in the first half of the season, he was getting healthy scratched like you would not believe. And, you know, it really didn't seem like he was getting much of a chance. And I think that the Flyers almost did trade him for Shane Pinto, but then Pinto got that, you know, ban because of the gambling scandal and that kind of fell through. But Torts said back in January, he said, Morgan Frost came into my office and we had, you know, an honest discussion and, you know, he said what he needed to say. He said how he was feeling. We talked about it and worked it out. And after that, Morgan Frost got way more of a chance. And Torts was like, I really respect the fact that he was able to walk into my office and, you know, he wasn't angry. He wasn't like, F you, man, like, what are you doing? He was like, look, I don't think I deserve to be benched. And I'm here to let you know that. And, you know, I want to approach you man to man and just, you know, try and work something out. And Torts was like, I want the players to do that. I want them to be able to come in and be like, I don't agree with what you're doing. And then they can have a discussion about that. So a lot of people see that as kind of the turning point in Morgan Frost's season, is him legit just going to Torts and be like, look, I think that I deserve more of a chance and I think that you should give me one. And then after that, Frost really did prove himself.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think Ryan Callahan talked a lot about that with his experiences with Torts, where like the more him and Torts like went back at each other, like the more ice time he got and like the more productive he was. Like it was, he definitely, pretty sure it was Ryan Callahan. So,
yeah, it was. He was
the first.
I saw him on a podcast. I mean, that's interesting because from a coach's perspective, Parcells was famous for that, with Phil Simms and Lawrence Taylor arguing on the sidelines. Any sport where it's a mutual respect, you're going to have heads butting at that level where, you know, I think this is what we should be doing, and no, I'm the boss. And that's definitely a part of showing that Torts is coming around and trying to listen a little more than just saying, no, it's my way or the highway, you know? Because with the Rangers, that's pretty much how he was.
Yeah, he said as much. He was like, I know that with this new generation of players, I'm going to have to do things differently. And he knows that he has to make adjustments and, you know, maybe go a little off script as to how he used to be. But he says, he's like, if I want to get the best out of these players, I have to make some changes. And he knows that, and he acknowledged that. And, you know, I will never understand people who are trying to say this season that Torts didn't take accountability for his actions, because I think he took plenty of it. You know, he's not afraid to say, I was wrong, or I should have done things differently. So yeah, that's another thing that I was a little confused about, because Torts was like, hey, you know, I do have to change and I do have to do things differently. And yeah, just I will never understand people who are like, he didn't take accountability for anything.
Well, also give Frost credit, because in this day and age, these younger kids are going to be like, oh, just trade me. I don't want to play for this guy anymore.
Yeah.
So for him to step in and have to go into a guy like his office,
Mm-hmm.
he had to be a little shaking a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Would you let him borrow your high whites?
You know, if he had asked, I don't know if they would have fit him, but I would have lent them to him just in case.
Good luck.
All right, so looking ahead, I mean, the Flyers are still in rebuild mode. They got a lot of young players. They got three first-round picks this year. You know, where do you see their season going? I mean, look, having them in the playoffs wouldn't surprise me with Torts as the coach. I know they were almost in it last year. I think they were 4 points out. So I kind of break it down into 5 different like sections of a team. Like, are they a lottery team? Are they a bubble playoff team? Like right outside. So right outside or right in, a wild card team. Are they a division contender or a Stanley Cup contender? Right. So I don't know where you think they fit in that spectrum.
I mean, obviously you go into every season wanting to make the playoffs, and that's the goal. And, you know, I think that's where the Flyers will want to be. But so many people in the organization have acknowledged that they're not a sure shot for the playoffs. And, you know, they're like, obviously it'd be great to make it. I don't think that they would make it super far if they did make it into the playoffs. But you know, it's what they're going for. But right now they're not basing they're not measuring their success off of playoffs. They're measuring the success off of how well is, you know, the chemistry building in the team. You know, how consistent can they be? Can they make that consistent playoff run without kind of falling off later in the season? So I wouldn't be surprised if they made it to the playoffs. I don't know if we'd see them go past, you know, the first round maybe. But I don't think that that's where their focus is. I don't think they're going to consider the season a failure if they don't make it. It's more just like they're still focusing very much on building a team that can work together and play together, knowing that that kind of chemistry just inevitably brings success over time. So they're being very patient with it for sure.
That was a really good political answer. Really, really good.
Thank you.
It was, because you said a lot, but you didn't pick one of the spectrums. You didn't pick the spots. And he was like, yeah, maybe it is. No, but I'm with you. I think that's the mindset of the team. It makes sense. I think they're a bubble team.
Yeah.
I think
that's what I was going to say. It's pretty much what she said.
Yeah. And I think that's what you're saying because of the coach, right? So I think they'll be competitive. It won't be a lottery team, but I don't see.
I think it's more going to depend on the goaltending situation.
That's personally. What I was about to say.
Yeah. I mean, look what happened to the Devils last year. The goaltending they thought they had what it took, and then all of a sudden they just didn't do anything close to what they did the year before. That's going to be a big question mark if that kid can come out as the number 1 or 1A or whatever you want to call it, and play at that level.
Yeah, it's a very precarious situation because if knockwood something does happen where they do need to have another guy come in, you know, there's not a whole lot of goalies right now in the system that I think would be ready for the call up. You know, Alexei Kolosov is holding out in Belarus, and we don't know, you know, what's going on with him wanting to come back over. You know, there's just not one goalie that I think, you know, that you could call up from the Phantoms or something that would be ready for the NHL. So it kind of depends on, can these 2 goalies stay healthy, and then how they react if, you know, God forbid something does happen where they do have to kind of go through the rotating cast of characters that they had this past season.
Yeah, because last year it seemed like, as much as I paid attention to them, they had to come back at the end of a lot of games. Meaning they were behind, obviously, and too often. And that's tough to do through 82 games.
Yeah, and they had a lot of backup goalies come in. They had Felix Sandstrom, they had Cal Peterson, and those guys just, couldn't do what they needed to do. And Fedotov kind of came over out of nowhere. And so it was just a lot of, goalies coming in and out. And, Sam Ersson was a rookie and he was thrown into the number one position and was just kind of like, okay, throw it into the fire. Here you are. Good luck. So hopefully it's a little more consistent this year. And hopefully Sam is, a little more comfortable in that role and has had more time to prepare properly. So, but yeah, it's still going to be a very precarious kind of touch and go situation with the goaltending.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, they definitely have talent with those two. You got to hope one of them, I guess, as a Flyers fan, you would hope one of them at least. I know Ersson kind of broke out last year, but let's see what he does in his second year. I want to talk about the Rangers if I can, and I don't know if you had any more Flyers questions for.
No, I think that's pretty much it.
So I wanted to transition to the Rangers. So I'm sure no one predicted last year the Rangers would win the President's Trophy, especially after losing in the first round to New Jersey. They did. It's kind of hard to predict the Rangers are going to be better than winning the President's Trophy unless you're predicting them to win the Stanley Cup, right? That's the only real way to be better. So I don't know. I mean, at the risk of you alienating the entire Flyers fan base, what are your thoughts on the Rangers going into this season with some of the moves that they made, and just generally your thoughts on the team last year as well?
I mean, obviously the Rangers were a great team. I can be objective and say that. I got to go to MSG for the first time to see a Rangers game, so that was really cool. And I think the Rangers are always going to give the Flyers a little bit of trouble just because, they do have a ton of talent and the Flyers are still very young and kind of finding their footing. But, in April, they were able to beat them 4-1 at MSG. So I don't think that it's an impossible obstacle. I just think that it's going to be one of those games on the schedule that it's going to make me a little nervous just because, it's either the Flyers have the game of their lives and they completely dominate or, they completely get dominated, and it could really go either way. And I really, really hate how in the Wells Fargo Center when they play the Rangers, you can really hear the Rangers fans and there's a lot of Rangers fans and it drowns out the Flyers fans, and that's never nice to hear at a home game. So I hope that's
a 1-hour drive.
That's a lot of arenas though. That isn't just Philly, so don't feel bad.
Yeah, but
we love to travel, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I hope that the Flyers fans can start kind of doing that as well, and the fan base can get more into it like that. But yeah, it was not fun being in the Wells Fargo Center and then just hearing, because I think I don't remember exactly what game it was, but the Flyers lost, and it was really it just sounded like a Rangers game because the Flyers fans were just so over it that it really just sounded like a Rangers game, and that was not fun to sit through.
Yeah, I was at the one last year. Tarasenko scored the game-winning goal in overtime, and it sounded like I was at the Garden for sure. So
yeah,
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Last year, yeah, that's what I meant by last year. Yeah, so 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Let me.
So as if we're in that season.
So do you think the Rangers are still a Stanley Cup contender, or do you think they're going to take a step back, maybe fall into the middle of the pack? Where do you think they're headed?
I think they can still be a Stanley Cup contender. I mean, I, for a while, was thinking that they would make it a lot farther than they did in the playoffs. There's plenty of talent, there's plenty of ability, and, I think after this season, they'll want to go farther and they'll want to do more. And I think they might have a little bit of chip on their shoulder, revenge tour kind of mindset, and that can always be pretty dangerous for a team. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a serious run for the Cup.
Siobhan, take us through like we watch the games. I like to go to the warm up. People make fun of me. Actually, Eddie's friend from Philadelphia makes fun of us the most. But anyway, a lot of players to me seem like they're not 100% committed. Off the ice, what is it like when the players they're gearing up for the game early? I don't know what word I'm looking for. How committed are they to wearing it on their sleeve, how they play and stuff?
From what I've noticed, at least, from seeing the Flyers morning skates and practices and everything, they are committed to it, and I, from my perspective, they really are serious about it and they do want it. But I think, and I don't know if this, goes for every team, but with the Flyers at least, they do focus a lot on getting guys the rest that they need and finding that balance between putting in the hard work, but also giving them time to recover. And, if there's a family emergency or something, not forcing them to play through it. So I guess it just kind of depends on how you feel about, letting guys take that rest and recovery and, where you think that balance should be. But there is a lot of hard work, and I think they do take it seriously. It's just, I think the league in general is changing and focusing a lot more on the mental health side and, guys being able to have that kind of work-life balance. So however you feel about that, I think is, whether you see that as a positive or negative thing. But for me, at least, it still seems like they do take it seriously, but they also take seriously their own personal well-being, because obviously you can't be pouring from an empty cup. So I'm definitely noticing more of a focus on that along with playing well on the ice.
Interesting. No, it is.
Yeah, well, I guess off behind the scenes question, another one. I guess you saw the whole debacle with my hat. You were backstage.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've met Gritty before?
I have.
Can you give us your experience, or I guess a Gritty story, maybe that wasn't shown on social media or something?
I know a lot of people kind of forget that there's a person in the Gritty suit, because Gritty seems like his own sentient being. But I actually, when I was going up to the press box, I actually was in the elevator with the guy that plays Gritty, which was kind of weird. I was
out of suit?
Yeah, out of the suit. But the way that they were talking to him, I was like, oh my God, this is the guy that plays Gritty. That's so weird.
It's like talking to Clark Kent.
No, really. It was like, oh my God, my mind couldn't even process that. But the interactions that you have with him, in the suit, it's amazing how in character he stays. And I guess it's easy because when you're Gritty, you just let the intrusive thoughts win. You can do whatever you want as Gritty, and people are like, oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So just every interaction I've had with him, I've taken pictures with him, and he's just so goofy, so out of pocket. It's it's amazing.
Yeah. When I was young, I interned with the Binghamton Mets. I think my cousin and uncle are going to kill me because I've told this story probably 1,000 times to them. And I had to, as part of that internship, one day I had to fill in for the mascot.
Oh wow!
So I had to wear the mascot. And let me tell you something. Number one, it's baseball, and it was really hot. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, you cannot see. I don't know how those guys do it, especially ones like Gritty that are super active. Yeah, they have to have something that they can see, because I couldn't see down. So I'd be walking, and I'd be like, okay, I could see in front of me. And then something would grab my leg, and I'd be like, what the heck's on my leg? And I have to turn my whole head. And there's a kid hugging me. And I'm like, get off me, I can't move. So it's really hard. I give those guys are performers, and girls. The
great thing about Gritty is that he has his own security detail. How the president has Secret Service? The Gritty guards. They literally, that's their job title. They have Instagram. The Gritty guards have their own Instagram. They're in suits, sunglasses. They have the little, I don't know if they're fake earpieces, but they have the little security earpieces, and they literally follow him around, and they're his security detail. It's a very serious thing.
Philly is just known for these weird mascots too. You got the Philly Fanatic is the weirdest mascot.
You gotta give it to them. They saw the rebuild. They saw the rebuild coming. A little dark couple years for the team. Not a lot of success on the ice, and they introduced Gritty, who took over the NHL. And then Seattle had to try and compete with it and announce their mascot. And then I'm sure Utah is going to do the same thing. And so it's fun. It brings the kids to the arena. And like I said, I'll mention the game again. When I went, the Wells Fargo was a ton of fun. It was a good experience. It was unlike the Prudential Center and other places we've been. Wells Fargo got a good review from me.
Love to hear it.
I've never been to Wells Fargo. Got to get there. But
it's a great game day atmosphere.
I went to a game in Philly at the Winter Classic, but where was that? Citizens Bank, I think.
No,
Yeah,
that was
Citizens
at the
Bank.
Lincoln Financial Field.
Oh, is it Lincoln Financial?
Mm-hmm.
When did
No,
they play
that's
the
the
Rangers?
football.
2012.
The football
Long
field
time.
is Lincoln Financial.
Yeah.
Right?
The baseball
so
stadium is Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah, so they played the Winter Classic at the baseball stadium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a while ago though.
Oh, I'm thinking of the
Long time
Stadium Series. That's
Yeah, Stadium Series, they played at Lincoln. Yes, correct.
okay.
Okay, so before we let you go, I got to ask this. I'm going to ask this to every guest. Who's the most hated Ranger for either for you or if you don't want to say for Flyers fans that you notice, like which Rangers player do they just can't stand?
Huh. That's a tough one. I feel like, I mean, for Flyers fans, there's really not a wrong answer for that. I mean, I know after the whole fight he had with Deloria, I know Rempe wasn't like super favorable, but like a lot of teams didn't like him.
Nobody likes him.
Yeah, I guess Mika, could go with that. Panarin. So
Mika
gotta be
scores
Mika.
Mika
It's gotta be
scores the
Mika
4
for
or 5
Philly.
goal games every time against Philly.
Yeah, he always shows out against us. So
Yeah. He knows when to turn it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll go 13 games without a goal and then score 4 against Philly.
Yeah.
Do you hear any rumblings from when they did play the Rangers with Rempe and the fighting and stuff from the players? You hear any mumbling? Like, I'm going to get this guy or something,
I know him and Deloria talked I know Deloria talked to Rempe before the first game that they played against him. So they definitely kind of planned that out. Other than that, I haven't really heard anyone talk about Rempe specifically. Because again, we just don't have a ton of those fighter enforcer guys. But yeah, I know the first time that they played against Rempe in warm-ups, D'Lo was talking to him, and I guess they were like, all right, we're gonna do this. And they did. So
and what'd he say after the game?
Well, he didn't have to say a whole lot because he had a big bruise on his forehead, and it was like, okay, that kind of does the talking. But I think people are just excited because that was a good brawl that they had. That was a good old school. I mean, that was really
He's
fun.
He's a mean guy, man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to fight him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No.
Definitely not.
Oh, Rempe. We can't go one episode without talking about him.
Nope.
I hope he scores 25 goals this year and just
that would be great. That would be something.
Yeah.
Good for the game.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, you guys check her out on X at SG Nolan, and you can also see at the Hockey News. I'm sure your articles are posted there. I went on and saw some of your articles. She's a great writer, and thank you again for joining us.
No problem.
And, good luck this season with Torts and with the players. And hope to have it back on soon.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be back on soon whenever Flyers and Rangers meet again.
And in case you don't remember, at the Nationals, I told you to say hello to him, so you better say hello to him for me.
I absolutely will. First time. I haven't seen him. Him all summer.
Give him a sticker for the podcast.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure
very professional. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And if you need some custom high whites, I do custom sneaker design in the workshop behind me. So
maybe Torts and I can get matching high whites. Maybe that's something I approach.
Would be so weird. I'll do them for free. I'll send you guys 2 pairs of sneakers if you promise me the Torts.
You gotta put Torts on the side though.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh yeah.
I'll bring that up. His daughter actually lives in Long Beach, where I live in New York. So yeah, it's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
I would love to do the sneakers though, so I think we should do that.
I think that would be great. I would love that.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. Good luck.
Thank you so much, guys.
Siobhan Nolan
thank you so much.
with the Hockey News. So awesome interview. Really interesting to hear the Flyers, I'm a little bit surprised that it wasn't like, oh, they're going to make the playoffs. I'm actually really happy that because the objectiveness that she had there, the objectivity of the Flyers' outcome last year, that it's an unlikely scenario, pretty much. I mean, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but that's the vibe I got.
Well, she seems to be a realist, realizing, and she probably listens to Keith Jones and Briere about their
Yes.
goals. Not like the normal fan saying, "Oh, they suck this year. Why isn't he playing it?" She's listening to their plan, and she knows. She's a realist about it.
Well, that's what Paul says. No prediction, Paul. We did ask her prediction. She kind of picked them as a bubble team. I thought, without saying it. But I think it's difficult sometimes to make a prediction when you're covering a team professionally, because you don't want to say, I think they're going to stink or they're going to win the Stanley. Like, you can't really say anything. You got to try to be objective. And I thought she was. But I think she was saying, the team doesn't really care from a management perspective if they make the playoffs or not. That's a bonus. But the coach is all in on the playoffs, right? And that's what you want. But Torts is going to try to make the playoffs. I mean, he's not going to.
Yeah, but he's gonna try and make the playoffs. But like last year, I watched a couple of interviews. He said he's not going to make the playoffs at the expense of the development of certain players.
Oh,
he's not going to
really, because Gerard Gallant said the NHL is not a developmental league. But I guess Torts he can develop players, but we don't get.
Well,
guys
of course, he wants to make the playoffs, but they have a plan, and I'm sure, like I said, they brought Keith Jones in. I'm sure they all sat down.
A rebuild, right?
Right. This is what we want to do. They're not going to fire him if they don't make the playoffs. That's what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll get there in 2 years or so, and they're in the right direction, is what I'm saying. Of course, he wants to make it, but
no, I agree with you. I find it interesting, your opinion, that Torts is going to develop players, that playoffs isn't the end all be all during a rebuild, that's the way the team's approaching it. I think it's very cogent thoughts you're having right now, Coach. It's very interesting.
Because look at it from the perspective.
Like Torts. We talked about Torts for a few minutes, so
look at it from the perspective of him. He's already won a Stanley Cup. He's coaching over 20 years in the NHL. He doesn't need to make the money. I'm sure he's set. So he can now do what he needs to do to get, and I'm sure the GM and the president said, this is what we want to do. He's not fighting for a job, is what I'm trying to say. He's not a young coach in the league having to win to continue.
So you're saying management gave him the confidence to focus on development versus
I'm guessing that's what
needing
happened.
To win to keep his job?
Yeah, he doesn't have to in this stage of his career.
So you think the Rangers when they hired Gallant, had an ultimatum of like, you need to be successful. That's why he wasn't developing players.
Well, maybe he has a different perspective. I don't really know what went on, but yeah, that could be the case. Gallant has a different outlook on it. He never won a cup. He wants to win a cup. You know what I'm saying? When you won it, you want to win it again. But his career is going to be done. He won a cup.
Before we wrap this episode up, I do want to just ask Coach a few questions. Coach, I'm going to go through a couple Rangers, and I want to know if you think they're Tortorella type players, like if they would succeed with Tortorella.
Oh, this is good. This is going to be
ready.
Good.
This is going to be a rapid fire thing here. All right, Capo Caco.
No.
No, I would have said yes though. Filipino.
Me too.
No way.
Alexis Lafreniere.
Yes.
Okay, but Caco, no. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think Kako is a Tortorella type of player. I don't know.
Well, he plays defense. He works hard. I mean,
I think he is a Tortorella type player, and the fans want him not to be.
Yeah, I think he would fit right in with the Torts system. He works hard. He plays defense. I don't know. Interesting.
I just see his demeanor as when he fails, like when I just don't see him coming back strong. I don't know. It's a different perspective to me. I don't see his body language.
What about Zibanejad?
I'm gonna say. Wait, are we asking if if he would want to play for Tortorella? Or?
No, he would succeed under Tortorella. Tortorella would play him, and he would succeed. We know Panarin and Kreider what they already did with Tort, so I'll skip that. But Zibanejad, I don't think
Zibanejad would succeid.
Yes,
he would.
Yes, he's a good two-way defensive player. Tortorella would appreciate that. Not like you guys. He's got to score 30 goals. He would be happy with him killing the penalties and doing what he's supposed to do.
I see Zibanejad as a better version of Dubinsky, and Dubinsky hated Torts.
What about Trocheck?
Oh my God, that's Trocheck he'd thrive in Philly right now.
Yeah, he would. Trocheck and Torts is a match made in heaven.
He'd be the
Oh
captain.
my God.
Yeah,
my
he'd
God.
be the
Trocheck would be captain.
Yeah, for real. Let's do a couple more here and then get out of here. What about Lindgren?
No, come on.
That was a gimme. I mean, come on. He doesn't even
You
answer.
gotta talk to McJimmy.
That's a tap in.
Keandre.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that.
Gone.
What about Fox?
I think Fox would thrive under Tortorella. I think he would do well. He's not physical enough. He's not physical, but I don't think Tortorella would appreciate his game. His mental game is insane. So I would say he's good. I don't know if Torch would put him on the penalty kill as much. I think he would be more like we say, not overplaying him. It seems like from what Siobhan said, they're trying to manage their time more wisely.
Yeah.
80 games is
Paul
tough.
says
80
They
games
should
is
have
tough.
There's no reason.
All right, we're going to shift now. We're going to do Mike Keenan because Paul wants to know, would Fox thrive under Mike Keenan?
Shit, Leach didn't even thrive under Mike Keenan.
So let's do Mike Keenan now, all right? Start over. No,
Well, not to break it to a subject here, but it'd be interesting to see how much, say, penalty kill time and stuff like that Fox gets next season or this season coming up, after the last 2 seasons finishing with an injury, and being a little bit beat up in the playoffs. I think it's something to consider, especially early on. There's no reason.
Man, I just want Fox healthy in the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's no reason for him to be killing penalties, I don't think. But I know they scored a lot of shorthanded goals last year, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. I know a lot of teams are doing that, throwing their better players out for that reason. But to me, it doesn't seem worth it.
It's hard over 80 games. It's a lot of time.
All right, where you guys got Philly this year? Start you, Little Ed.
I was gonna as the episode went on, I was thinking yes, playoffs, yes, but that goaltending is a big question mark, and just Philly just does not have good luck with goaltending. So I think they're gonna miss one more year. They're gonna miss another year. I think their goaltending will do well. I don't think they're gonna come out and he's not gonna be rookie of the year. This kid, I think he'll do fine, but I think they'll be a bubble team and just miss again.
Yeah, I got them I haven't yet for the season, obviously, but I'll probably have them 10th in the East or something. They'll be there, because Torts is going to steal games from people. That's the reality.
For sure.
And I think Michkov is going to. I know she said he probably won't be point a game out of the gate, but he could be dude. He's that talented. He could come out the gate, score 40 goals. I mean, it's unpredictable with a guy like him. Coach, what about you?
I think they're going to push. Here's my bold prediction. I think Carolina's not going to make it.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, Coach.
I think
they lost so many players.
They lost a lot of key players.
It's August 12th. The offseason's not over yet. I'm not asking for your bold prediction on. You don't have to make any playoff.
So we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this again before our preseason episode, right?
What I'm saying is,
you have time to marinate who you think, and you just coming out.
Okay.
Carolina's missing the playoffs. I just asked you
if you let me finish, I think Philly's going to take that spot with the Rangers and Devils. I think they were close to finishing third. I think they tasted it. I think they're going to push them to that.
So you got the Islanders out too.
Yeah.
Devils, Rangers, and Philly. Ugh.
Well, the Islanders can make the wild card, no?
So could Carolina.
Right. I'm saying in the top three. I think Philly's going to sneak into the 3 spot.
All right.
Wow. Don't forget. We'll get into it. I mean, we got a long rivalry tour ahead of us. I'm super excited.
Well, now he's got Rangers, Devils, and Philly. So let's see if that stays the same by the time we get to the actual predictions.
Yeah. So
Next week we got the Devils, right?
No,
No, the
Next-
week after.
no. Next week we got Hockey Night in New York. So Sean Cuthbert and Stefan Rosner will be joining us. Sean, obviously the host of Hockey Night in New York. Stefan writes for NHL.com, covering the Islanders and hanging around that team. So we always get the nice insight from him. And they've been interviewing a lot of good guests over the summer and stuff. So I'm sure we'll get some stories on that front. And yeah, Sean's become a good friend of the show, and hopefully a lot of content with them this season. Get in the mix,
Yeah.
So
No, we love them over at Hockey Night in New York, and they do a great job covering the Islanders. And it's always fun. Every year I kind of chirp them a little bit during that episode, but I'm kind of hoping that Gaza will take over that in the next episode, so I could be a little more professional this year.
yeah, Gaza's looking forward to next week, and then the week after will be Neil over at Devil's State of Mind. So Gaza's he was a little weak. I think he was a little intimidated by the lady. He didn't want to say anything too mean to the lady on the show.
Paul called him out.
Across the pond, they're very polite. Gaza's a very polite guy. He doesn't want to insult any women. So I think he'll be firing back next week with Sean and then Neil. And then after that, we got Mikey P. After a long summer off doing the Rangers at 150, he'll be returning to cover his beloved Bruins with, I guess his nickname is Boozy from the Only Bruins podcast. Successful podcast up there in the New England area, and works on Bruins FM radio, I believe, as well. So we'll get some insights from them, and then we'll close it out, or at least on the schedule, close it out against Pittsburgh with Nick, the host of Tip of the Iceberg. And then, like I said before, we're working on the guys over at the Surgecast, hopefully cover Carolina. Then we'll be close enough, Coach, that you can make your bold prediction.
We got time, Coach.
Got about 5 or 6 weeks until we.
It's gonna come around quick. Well, I'm gonna try to sneak on. I'll be in Disney. I'm gonna try to sneak on Monday night for a few minutes with Sean. I didn't want to miss that one.
We'll figure it out.
Oh no, you got to be on there. We'll get you on, Coach. Don't worry. We'll get you on. But all right, boys, let's wrap it up. Thank you, everybody.
Ed, you got to announce that I'm going to be color commentating on Long Island Sports Network.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Real quick, this upcoming, I guess, high school and college season, Coach Ed's going to be doing some guest spots, color commentating on Long Island Sports Network. So you can catch him over at YouTube, doing some high school games around Long Island, and we'll see how he does. Gotta get some eyes on the Empire Conference Coach of the Year.
Cuz don't be shaking your head. You got to get me my pregame reports.
His notes.
No, I'm just. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, listen, it'll be entertaining at least. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. We got a lot of exciting things coming up, hopefully with Mike over at Long Island Sports Network.
Yeah,
guys, thanks for supporting us as always, fans. Paul, Gaz, JR, and the Instagram chat. You guys are great. Keep it going. And we'll see all you guys next week when we are still on Long Island.
Yeah. Like Paul said, I'm surprised they don't call their show Hockey Night on Long Island. I love it. On that note, good night, guys. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.